What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with yet another CD collection update for you guys. So this is going to be kind of a mini update because this is basically me getting caught up with everything that I've gotten before my next vacation, which, by the way, when this video is posted, I will already be on that vacation to Gulf Shores, Alabama. And hopefully I'll be able to get a decent amount of stuff on that trip. But yeah, this is basically the last update until the updates begin for that, depending on what all I can get. And yeah, so this is going to be kind of a shorter update, I will say, but I'm happy with everything that I have here. But let's go ahead and get started. First we have Blaspherian, Infernal Warriors of Death. This is the lone studio full-length from this Texas death metal band. And this was kind of one that I've heard from a lot of people saying, like, this is a must-have for, like, the modern, old-school sounding death metal movement. And this was kind of one of the earliest ones. In 2011, this came out on Deathgasm Records. And they were on Dark Descent, and then they broke up in 2021. I forget, I think one of the members passed away. But yeah, this is just some nasty, evil death metal, and the best way to describe this album, basically this is like a modernized version of Immolation's Dawn of Possession. Like, you hear a lot of bands worship Immolation, but they mainly worship everything from Hereinafter onward. Not a whole lot of bands really worship the Dawn of Possession era. This is one of those albums that absolutely does. I mean, hell, the album covers kind of inspired by Dawn of Possession, with the angels being torn apart or thrown into the fires. But yeah, this album is just nasty, it's dark, it's sinister. I mean, songs like Desecration Eternal, Sworn to Death and Evil, the title track, Invoking Abomination, like, there's just some evil sounding stuff right here. And like I said, very Dawn of Possession inspired. So if you are a fan of that particular era of Immolation, check this album out. You can find this cheap online. I managed to get it for like 11 bucks. But yeah, this is some awesome stuff. And sadly, the band broke up a few years ago. But yeah, this was their lone album, and it was a killer one. Excuse me. Next up, we have Cro-Mags, the Age of Quarrel. I almost forgot the name of the album real quick, or for a moment. But yeah, Cro-Mags, the Age of Quarrel. This is the debut album from this New York hardcore / crossover thrash legendary band. After all, I'm a huge fan of early Cro-Mags, mainly a fan of the second album, Best Wishes, which I do have. But I always wanted to get this, but before this was reissued by Astor Place Recordings, or BFD. Yeah, BFD, whatever that was. Before this got reissued by that label, you were hard-pressed to find a CD copy of this album without having to pay a fortune for it. Thankfully, when I bought my OG copy of Best Wishes, it was an OG copy from '89, and I only got it for like 14 bucks, and it was in damn good shape. So yeah, this is a reissue of the album that came out, I want to say it was either last year or 2022, but yeah, Age of Quarrel, this is just one of the best hardcore albums of all time. I mean, songs like You Gotta Know, World Peace, Show You No Mercy, It's the Limit, let's see, just Hard Times, just some awesome songs. And what's interesting is that while this is primarily a New York hardcore album, there are some songs on here that would kind of tease their thrash metal side, or at least like crossover influences. Songs like Malfunction, Seekers of the Truth, Life of My Own, like those have more like metal moments, which this is still a pretty heavy album. It's just maybe not considered metal, quote unquote. But you can tell New York hardcore was more metal-inspired than punk-inspired. But yeah, even though there is a lot of punk on here, it's still a fantastic album, and not my favorite Cro-Mags album. If I were to rank Cro-Mags, this would be my number 2, because Best Wishes to me was where everything came together. But still, awesome album, nothing more, nothing less. Next up, we have Gorephilia, In the Eye of Nothing. This is, I believe, the 4th studio full-length from this Finnish death metal band. I say Finnish death metal, however, this sounds closer to Florida death metal, particularly Morbid Angel. And be prepared to take a shot every time I mention Morbid Angel, because I got quite a few albums here that are very Morbid Angel inspired. So there you go. But yeah, Gorephilia, I first got into this from Necrotic Nick from Thralls of Metal last year when I went up to Toledo and I visited him and hung out with Jammin' John, Shredlord, and Miller. Hung out with all those guys, and while I was at Nick's place, he was playing me stuff off of this, and I thought, damn, this is some nasty stuff. And he's like, oh yeah, it's totally like Morbid Angel influenced. And I'm thinking, I do love Morbid Angel, so any band that worships at the altars of madness, I will definitely dig. And yeah, this album, definite Morbid Angel inspiration. Tracks like Walls of Weeping Eyes, Perpetual Procession, Procession, I meant to say, Consensus, Simplicity of Decay, Death Dream, like just all around nasty death metal that, while from Finland, sounds like Florida, which I always appreciate a good combination of European and American death metal anyway. So yeah, if you are a fan of, Morbid Angel, Incantation, Immolation, maybe like Vital Remains even, definitely give this a listen. Next up, we have Helloween, Better Than Raw. Okay, I'm trying to remember the timeline here. I want to say this was the 7th studio full-length from this German power metal pioneer, and yeah, this is often considered one of the best Helloween albums. And I definitely agree. I mean, this definitely has a little bit of a darker tone overall. Like, they tune their guitars down to E flat, so a half step down, which immediately adds a more evil sound to it. And there are some really cool tracks on here, like Falling Higher, Hey Lord, Don't Spit on My Mind, Handful of Pain. There's some really cool songs on here. However, one of the big selling points of this album is this album cover. Arguably the sexiest album cover of all time in metal, just because it's a sexy dominatrix witch who's boiling a bunch of pumpkins, like baby pumpkins, which is really, really cool. But yeah, just album covers, amazing. Album itself is damn good. So if you're a fan of Helloween, good chance you probably already own this. But if you don't, definitely give it a listen. Alright, next up we have Malignant Altar, Realms of Exquisite Morbidity. This is the lone studio, I think this might have been the lone album, or there was maybe one before, from this American death metal band. I forgot what state they were from, or where exactly they were from. Probably should have looked all this up before filming this, but whatever. But yeah, this was their last album. I do know that for a fact. This was their last album. It was on Dark Descent Records. I believe it was 2021 when this came out. And, well, it's Morbid Angel worship. Again, it's only 6 tracks, but all 6 songs just nasty. Like Channeling Impure Apparitions, Usurping the Pantheon Crown, the title track, Ceremonial Decapitator. Just awesome, evil, sinister death metal that, once again, Morbid Angel inspired. And just overall a little grittier and more raw in terms of today's death metal. So again, if you're a fan of Morbid Angel, I would also say even like modern bands like Undeath, definitely check this out too. Next up, Merciful Fate, Melissa. This is of course the debut album from this legendary Denmark metal band. I just recently, at the time of recording this video, actually the day before I recorded this, was the release of my Merciful Fate album ranking, and this was my number 2. It is still a phenomenal debut album, and I'm not going to touch more on it than I already did on that ranking video, so if you want to know my full opinion, check out the Merciful Fate ranking. But yeah, this is phenomenal. I mean, every song is amazing. King Diamond's the man. I'm just going to leave it at that. Excuse me. So now the next four albums are all from the same band. I finally decided to give this band more of a proper chance after years of kind of dismissing them because I'm not a fan of the quote-unquote gent genre, even though, once again, not a genre. It's just 8-string guitars. That is it. So I decided to finally give a chance to the band that seemingly invented a genre, even though it's not a genre, and that's Meshuggah, kicking things off with their debut album, Contradictions Collapse. Debut 1991, and yeah, this is the most different album in the entire Meshuggah discography because this is more of a thrash metal album, like progressive thrash metal, technical thrash. I mean, like, all these songs are awesome. Like, Abnegating Cecity, Internal Evidence, Qualms of Reality, You Will Never See Today, Greed. These are just awesome songs, and it feels like definitely a proper mix of, you know, Coroner, Voivod, Atheist, Metallica especially, in Jens' vocals. Like, Jens Kidman's vocals, very James Hetfield inspired, and even Frederick Thorndahl does vocals on this album too, and he kind of is a bit similar, but he's way more aggressive in his vocals. But yeah, this is just, I'd say, one of the most underrated albums of all time. This is awesome. And what's cool about this version, this was the reissue in 2013, and it comes with, ironically, 4 of the songs from, next up, the Nun EP. So yeah, I actually have the songs from Nun on here, but I got the full Nun EP, and yeah, this is kind of a rare find. But yeah, this is the first EP from Meshuggah, 1994, and it was a definite shift from Contradictions Collapse. Not as thrashy, more towards grooves and polyrhythms, and definitely getting more into the prog. I mean, all these songs I think are really cool. Humulative, Sickening. Maybe my personal favorite Meshuggah song of all time is on this EP, Ritual. To me, that just sounds like if Metallica and Pantera co-wrote with Alice in Chains. It's heavy, it's melodic. Even Jens doing clean vocals, which I think is the only time in his career where he ever did clean vocals in Meshuggah. Gods of Rapture's killer. Even the random industrial track Aztec 2-step, there's some cool riffs on that song, even if it's like a big droning groove industrial track, kind of like a Fear Factory song almost. But yeah, Meshuggah's Nun, maybe now one of my favorite EPs to listen to ever. Next up we get Destroy, Erase, Improve, the second album that came out in 1995. And I mean, this is probably, along with Obscene, the album that most people know Meshuggah for, particularly for the song Future Breed Machine, as that song is like really iconic with all the rhythms and the chugs, and the breakdown in that song is just mwah. But there are some other killer songs on here like Soulburn, Transfixion, Vanished. Little bit of thrash still on here, especially on the song Terminal Illusions. Like, that kind of feels like a bit of a callback to Contradictions Collapse, but still has what they were going for from pretty much the Nun EP to now. Sublevels is really cool. Suffer in Truth. Just, this is probably one of the best prog metal albums of all time, for sure. And I felt bad that I slept on it. Now I have it, and it's awesome. And then the final one from Meshuggah, we have Nothing, the fourth studio full-length from Meshuggah. And this is actually the original version, 2002 release, the original recording. I know some people, like, especially, like Nick from Thralls of Metal prefers the re-recording from 2006. I listened to some stuff off of that version. I'm not as big a fan of that mix and production. I like the more grittiness of the original, so I went and got the original. Of course, Rational Gaze one of the best Meshuggah songs of all time. Hell, that fucking music video is trippy as balls. And it's awesome. So yeah, of course, other killer tracks on here too. But yeah, I was just glad I found actually a cheap and good copy of the original version. I might get the re-recording just to say that I have both versions, but who knows. But yeah, I got nothing and like it. Alright, we're almost near the end. Next up we have Mithras, Worlds Beyond the Veil. This is the second studio full-length from this British experimental death metal band. And once again, Morbid Angel worship, especially on this, because Mithras absolutely love their Morbid Angel, and you can definitely tell on a lot of these songs. I have their debut album, Forever Advancing Legions, which I like more than this, but this is still a worthy follow-up. The main issue with this one is the recording quality of the drums and the guitar tone's a little bit strange, but it kind of works for the eerie, almost cosmic vibe they were going on for this album. Or going for on this album, I should say. But yeah, there's some, and this is the longest Mithras album of all time. It's well over an hour. But you got some awesome tracks like the title track, Lords and Masters, Sirens, Sands of Time, Beyond the Eyes of Man. I've been listening to that one almost nonstop. But yeah, basically, if you are a fan of Morbid Angel, particularly from Covenant, Domination, and Formulas Fatal to the Flesh, you will love this. Definitely check out Mithras. I think they're one of the most underrated death metal bands of all time. So yeah, give them a listen. The penultimate album I have in this, we have Unholy From the Shadows. This is the debut full-length from this Finnish death doom band. And I'd listened to songs off of this in the past, like on YouTube or Spotify, and I always wanted to get an actual copy of it, but I just either never bothered to look it up, or when I did, it was ridiculously priced. This is the 2023 reissue and remaster from Peaceville Records. And what's cool, it also includes their demos from when they were known as Holy Hell, at the very end of the 80s before they changed their name to Unholy, I think in 1990. But the album itself, this is a pinnacle death doom album from the early mid-90s. Songs in particular that I loved on here were Creative Lunacy and Colossal Vision. What's interesting about Creative Lunacy is that while it's a death doom song, you get a couple of like thrash breaks in that song, kind of them channeling maybe a little Autopsy, a little Asphyx into their sound. But yeah, this was actually a very big pivotal album, not just in death doom, but in all of Finnish death metal. So if you are a fan of, oh man, what bands I could compare this to? If you are a fan of bands like Ripakolu, Hooded Menace, I would say maybe even like November's Doom or Cyanide, definitely check this out. And then the final one, we have Xenomorph, Empyreal Regimes. This is the lone studio full-length from this Nebraska-based death metal band, Cosmic Death Metal. And yeah, I was always curious about getting this, but I was like, wasn't too sold on the vocals at first, but now I do like them. The vocals kind of remind me a little bit of either Tom Angel Ripper during the recording of Tapping the Vein from Sodom, or Killjoy from Necrophagia. Musically, more Morbid Angel influence, but there's also some Time Ghoul, maybe even some Immolation, maybe a little Nocturnus, because it's very, very sci-fi, but also, dare I say, a lot of 90s death. Like, there's some death influence on here, too. But yeah, it's only 7 tracks, but also comes with the Subspecies demo, which, yeah, is pretty rough. But the actual album itself is wild, it is cosmic, and it's all about xenomorphs from Aliens. So what's cooler than that? So again, if you are a fan of, I would say, again, Morbid Angel, Time Ghoul, 90s era death, and Nocturnus, definitely listen to this. And that does it for this update. So like I said, at the time you're watching this, I'm on vacation, so there will be a break in the updates until I come back from that trip, and then eventually start getting stuff ready for, Black Friday sales and maybe even some Christmas presents. You never know what will happen with that. But anyways, what is your guys' favorite album out of all the ones I showed off in this update? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Thank you for watching. Keep your horns high and your dreams wet.
Thank you for your patronage.